You ever had one of those mornings where the universe just lines up to deliver you a cosmic punchline? That was me, 7 a.m. sharp, coffee steaming in my hands, rocking in my granddad's old chair, when 3 cop cars come barreling up my dirt road like there's a jailbreak in progress. And who's leading the cavalry? Delilah Thornfield, the self-appointed queen of Alpine Vista, standing there in $1,000 heels, screaming at the sheriff to arrest that man. He's trespassing on HOA property. I almost choked on my coffee, watching her jab her finger at me like she expected the sky to open up and swallow me whole. Now, the sheriff, bless his heart, looked like he wanted to disappear. Small-town guy, grew up with my folks, and here he is, boots crunching over pine needles, stuck in the middle of some HOA nightmare. I pulled that old yellow land grant from my flannel pocket, handed it to him slow. "Sheriff, you might want to see this." His jaw hit the ground so hard I thought he'd lost a filling. Every inch she was standing on, hell, half this valley, belonged to the Caldwell family. My family. And as the truth sunk in, Delilah's perfect little world started to unravel right there on my front lawn. But let me back up a sec and tell you how all this drama even started, because nobody's life ever gets this messy overnight. My name's Rex Caldwell, third-generation logger, oil rigger, mountain stubborn as the day is long. Grew up running wild through these woods, sleeping to the crackle of wood stoves and the smell of cedar. My dad passed 2 years ago, left me the old cabin, 40 acres, Cold Creek, enough timber to make a king jealous. It's the only thing I've ever really called home. See, while I was in Alaska fighting blizzards and stacking cash, some hotshot developers came sniffing around. Decided this quiet valley needed a gated community for city folks to play mountain dress up. Enter Alpine Vista Estates, 800 grand for a slice of rustic charm. And right at the center of it, my cabin, like a stubborn molar refusing to get pulled. That's where Delilah comes in. Mid-40s, lawyer from Seattle, white Tesla that looks like it's allergic to dirt, and enough attitude to steam the snow off these peaks. She gets herself elected HOA president in record time. And suddenly every shovel of dirt is regulated, every blade of grass inspected. To her, locals like me are just background noise, something to be managed, then forgotten. First time she waltzed up to my porch, clipboard in hand, she didn't bother with hello. "Mr. Caldwell, we need to talk about your property's compliance issues." I set down my axe, wiped sweat from my brow, and told her plain as day, "Ma'am, I'm not part of your HOA." She actually laughed. One of those sharp, icy laughs that makes you want to check your back pocket. "Oh, sweetie, you're mistaken. Your little cabin is subject to our rules now." She handed me a letter demanding $25,000 in improvements, new paint, fancy landscaping, the works. 30 days to comply or $500 a day in fines. You ever tasted well water so pure it bites your tongue? That's what injustice tastes like out here. I pulled out the original deed, the survey map, tried to explain, my land's been Caldwell land since before Montana had a zip code. She waved it off. Irrelevant. We have lawyers, you know. And off she strutted, heels clicking like a countdown to trouble. 3 days later, she sent in county code enforcement. 3 inspectors, measuring tapes, the whole parade, while Delilah sat in her Tesla, watching like some Bond villain. I played nice, offered jerky and coffee, let them poke around. Turns out, being stubborn runs in my blood. This old place was grandfathered in, legal as church on Sunday. Every violation she threw at me bounced off a century of paper and precedent. By noon, the inspectors were practically apologizing, said my cabin was in better shape than most new builds. Watching Delilah's face when they delivered that news. If looks could kill, this story would have ended right there. But she wasn't done. That afternoon, she blocked my driveway with her car, claimed the new survey showed it was HOA land now. Told me to call the sheriff if I disagreed. For the next week, it was a circus, her Tesla showing up at random, snapping pictures of violations, calling the paper to complain about my threat to property values. You know what I mean? The woman made my blood pressure spike just by existing. But that's when something wild happened. The real mountain folks started coming out of the woodwork, old-timers with stories of their own HOA battles, casseroles in hand, offering help with repairs, standing with me in ways that mattered. And then there's General Patton, my bloodhound, who turned into the unofficial mascot of neighborhood resistance, leaving little gifts, on Delilah's precious lawn every morning like clockwork. Still, Delilah cranked it up another notch, called a special HOA meeting, packed the community center, brought in county officials and fire marshals, the works. She gave a PowerPoint like she was at the UN, painting my cabin as a public menace, an eyesore, a danger to property values. Thing is, I was ready. Walked up with 3 folders: engineer's report, fire safety certification, legal precedents. Showed everyone my cabin was safer and sounder than half their McMansions. But here's the kicker. She finally dropped the mask. Admitted it wasn't about safety. It was about wanting me gone so she could buy my land. The room went dead quiet. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just my fight. This was about every person who'd ever been bullied by a board or pressured out of their own home. From there, things went full soap opera. Delilah sent a private investigator after me, tried to dig up dirt, then slapped me with a lawsuit for $50,000 in back HOA dues and legal fees. I paid a visit to Ephraim Jacobs, the old surveyor who'd mapped this whole valley. Turns out, my great-granddad hadn't just owned these 40 acres. He'd held the rights to almost the entire county, and though parcels were sold, the mineral and water rights stayed Caldwell. You could feel the world tilt as I realized what that meant. Delilah lost it completely, filed false police reports, called the media, painted me as a danger to community safety. But all the while, the tide was turning. Veterans showed up at my place, local nurses, working folks, everybody tired of her games. Even her own board started peeling away, sick of the drama and legal bills. And then the real twist. Margaret at the county office found the territorial land grant. Not just 40 acres, 12,000. The whole damn county. Mineral and water rights. All there in ink and dust. I could shut off Alpine Vista's water with a letter. But sitting in that office, the weight of it hit me. This wasn't just about flexing muscle. It was about what kind of legacy I wanted to leave. So I called in Sarah Blackwood, an environmental lawyer with a backbone. She brought Dr. Ruby Sterling, a conservation biologist, and Harold Finch, the local banker who knew how to build things that last. We started sketching out a plan, a community land trust, so everyone owns their home, but the land stays protected. No more HOA dictatorship, just neighbors voting together on what matters. We'd set aside thousands of acres for conservation, secure water and mineral rights for the trust, even bring in tourism and research money. Real jobs, real futures, real community. Of course, Delilah tried everything to shut us down. Neighborhood watch patrols, restraining orders, bogus environmental complaints. But every move made her look more desperate, less credible. The board started talking about voting her out. Her own supporters wondered if they were safer without her running the show. Then, right when I thought we'd seen it all, she brought in Mountain Property Solutions, corporate mercenaries with a playbook for bleeding communities dry. Suits, threats, sky-high fines, the whole shebang. But their arrogance backfired. The entire valley started rallying together, city folks and mountain folks alike, sick of being bullied. And just when Delilah tried to bribe a county commissioner. Yeah, you heard that right. The FBI rolled in, sniffing around for corruption. Sarah finished our trust proposal. Dr. Ruby got federal conservation status for the land, and Harold lined up the financing to make it all happen. The night of the showdown, the community center was standing room only. Delilah marched in with her PowerPoint, lawyers, and corporate goons, demanded the county condemn my property, claimed I was a threat to civilization itself. I waited until the air went still, then walked up, laid out the original land grant, told everyone what the Caldwell family still owned, and offered the trust plan. End HOA tyranny, protect everyone's investment, create jobs, preserve the land. It was everything Delilah had claimed to want, without her running the show. The place exploded. Old families, new families, even folks who'd been neutral stood up and cheered. Then the FBI arrested Delilah on the spot for bribery. Her face when those cuffs clicked shut? Priceless. A month later, we held the first community barbecue, called it the Great Decision. Families voted overwhelmingly to create the Pineville County Conservation Trust. Kids played, neighbors laughed, property values stabilized, and nobody missed Delilah's leadership. Her mansion sold at a loss to a teacher who planted tomatoes right in the front yard. Poetic justice, if you ask me. Now, people come from all over to see how we did it. Harvard law students write papers about the Caldwell Doctrine. Environmentalists call our valley a model for rural justice. And me? I just sit on my porch at sunset, General Patton by my side, watching smoke rise from chimneys all over land that finally belongs to the people who live here. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building something so good, so lasting, that their bitterness just gets swept away like yesterday's storm. That's how you win. That's how a stubborn mountain man beats an HOA Karen at her own game. So what about you? Got a wild HOA story or a neighbor from hell? Drop it in the comments. Tell me where you're tuning in from. And if you believe in fighting for what's right, go ahead and smash that like button. Here's to communities that stand together and to the sweet, sweet sound of freedom ringing through the pines.